Day 4 of the Information Security Summit in Cleveland, Ohio. Good morning, everyone. I am Robert Nettgen. I have my security friends here on the panel, whom I'm going to be introducing shortly. I just want to do a couple of morning announcements, which I'll recap these probably in about a half hour as more folks file into the room. We want to thank everybody for coming back to the Information Security Summit for this big day Thursday. And we want to thank our sponsors for their generous support. They're just all along the hallway. Palo Alto, Checkpoint, just lots of them out there. I'm going to call out some of the names a little bit later. Just thanking all of our sponsors for supporting the Information Security Summit. And these are really, really good sponsors. I happen to know some of those reps, and just nice people bringing nice products and tools to help you in your battle against the bad guys, for sure. We want to remind everybody to visit those sponsor booths, and also when you're out in the hallways, remember to mask up. Remember, masks are cool, okay? Masks are cool, and the hotel is asking us, and we're respectfully saying, yes, it sounds like a good idea to wear masks in the hallway. So just want to give you that reminder. The Rockefeller floor, if you're hunting for that, because today's your first day, that's on the second floor. Okay, so you got to go to that elevator back that way behind me and in that direction for those of you who are visually looking on site. And that's where the Rockefeller is on the second floor. There's an elevator. There's also a stairway. Just remember to take the stairway up to the second floor because there's a middle floor in there which leads to a utility closet, which is not where you want to go. Gee, how do I know that?
No comments. The mezzanine.
By the way, thank you for your patience as we navigate back to in-person events for those of you who are here in person. And not to forget those of you who are online.
Hey!
All right, thank you for those of you who are online because, you know, you're all attending this event, including those of you online, and you may wonder why the words in my mouth don't necessarily match the visual spoken on my face, okay? You know, we had some sync issues yesterday, and we're having some other issues today. And it's because of a really bad vendor to the hotel, whose name I haven't found yet, but as soon as I find them, I'm going to name shame them in front of a crowd that spends millions collectively on telecom, okay? So, Mr. Vendor, get your bandwidth fixed for this hotel so that we can actually have, you know, video and audio synced, and that's why we're not putting things up on the screen.
Actually, this isn't even Robert Nettgen. It's just all AI and machine learning that's happening right now. So,
yes, just don't reboot me. That's all I ask. All right. Meanwhile, let's get into security friends. I'd like to introduce our panel this morning. We have another top-notch panel here today. Joe Daw. And correcting what I said yesterday, he is a cybersecurity architect at IBM.
So you build IT securities?
Things. Right, exactly.
Plays with
A lot of
Legos.
bridges and walls.
And next to my buddy Joe is Billy Heiser. Mr. William Heiser is the manager of IT security at Lincoln Electric, a long-standing company in Cleveland, Ohio. Very distinguished history, and just those guys they sell products worldwide, if I'm not mistaken. And
We do. Happy to be here. And I don't know if you noticed this or not, but you have all of the presidents of the local ISC Squared chapter.
oh my
here.
goodness.
Wow.
Yes, we do. Just a little bit of trivia. Everybody on the panel is either a past or present president of the ISC Squared chapter. Every single one of us, I hold the title presently, and all of these gentlemen here preceded me.
That's good.
And
We should have sat
I
in
didn't
order.
even realize that. You're absolutely correct.
So that sounds like a great organization to join. Should
It
people
sure is.
join?
ISC Squared. You can become a CISSP,
Get out.
as we all are.
Well, there's one CISSP to another, Joe. I think that's an excellent organization to
it
try
is.
to join.
Or CCSP? There's a lot of them.
And let's also introduce, last but not least, Christopher Robinson, Director of Communications at Intel, Product Assurance and Security.
So do you direct
CRob.
communications, CRob?
I'm like a traffic cop. It's probably these little white gloves, and I stand out in the hallway and tell the ships where to go.
Do they give you a whistle?
They do.
God, I love whistles.
But I only may use it in the hall.
Whistles are fun.
Yeah.
All right. And let's, without further ado, jump into our security news stories. as I try to read them on screen as things pop up in front of me. Okay, former Microsoft security analyst claims Office 365 knowingly hosted malware for years. Malware on Windows devices has become a real problem in the last few years, and a cybersecurity researcher explained on Twitter how bizarre loader malware leads to ransomware that can severely affect healthcare, among other industries. He then called on Microsoft asking if the company has any responsibility in this when they knowingly, and the words are in upper cases, I'm reading them, knowingly are hosting hundreds of files leading to this alongside an image of what appears to be malicious files hosted in OneDrive.
Dun, dun, dun.
And I think I even heard...
Is that malicious software called Windows?
I think I even heard that issue referenced in several talks yesterday at this very conference.
Yeah.
I mean, does Microsoft bear some responsibility here? Is this their fault? Or are they just being negligent?
As we heard in some of the Trusted Sec presentations up in Rockefeller yesterday, living off the land is a thing now, where basically you use the Windows operating system to execute malware. So a lot of the features and functions that are built in have bad things built in for people to use. So that's why I joke, Windows is malware, but it kind of is.
Yeah.
It's that entry level.
Well, and so the thing about this, the headlines like that is not to defend Microsoft, but yeah, of course there's some ownership on their side, but I think the other thing is there's a lot more behind these stories, right? In these articles, you don't always get the gory details.
You mean it's clickbait?
Testify, brother.
You mean the headlines are designed to make us click on the article, and they're designed to be hypertensive and exciting
Exactly.
and exaggerating the problem?
Well, if you've ever run an incident before and you're having to talk to media, you really need to manage that kind of
Tell me more.
What, you mean media doesn't actually understand information technology?
Don't understand or care, or they want the headline. They're waiting for you to slip up and say something. Again, not defending Microsoft. Of course there's some ownership there, but
Yeah, indeed. Meanwhile, chalk one up for the good guys. Secret Service charges Nigerian mobsters with defrauding Americans. The U.S. Secret Service has charged 8 Nigerian mob members with wire fraud, identity fraud, and money laundering of American citizens, the agency announced in a statement. The 8 men, though all Nigerian-born, were based in South Africa and were members of a mafia syndicate known as the Black Axe. 7 of the men were charged with some of the men charged were high-ranking leaders in the group, while the 8th individual was charged as a conspirator.
Were they all princes?
Beat me to it.
I've donated to their fund.
You got the mob, but did you get the prince?
That's right.
You don't get the prince, the rest is all,
I mean, the fact that they actually found these guys is pretty remarkable.
It is.
I think it's interesting. You're seeing more hackback, where the white hat community is starting to go after some of these groups.
Yeah. It is good to see, and we talked about it yesterday. So you're seeing the private sector beginning to work with the public sector more, right? And that's exactly what needs to happen. Information sharing, we all know. And the days of, well, I don't want to tell you what I use is, kind of like what Kennedy was saying yesterday. The tools you use are all over LinkedIn anyways, right? So
That's true. We are giving away all the secrets. I mean, all of us on our LinkedIn profiles, we list all the stuff that we're expert in.
Yeah.
And if it's associated with the organizations with where we work, then the bad guys know it, just like all the other folks we're trying to advertise this information to.
Right.
I will invoke the spirit of glass full April and say maybe an article like this represents a bit of a turning point where there's enough pressure put around the globe. It's very bad for us here in the States, but we have a lot of capabilities, a lot of law enforcement. We're able to manage-ish things here. Yeah. But around the globe, imagine how it is when you're in a country that's less capable. So maybe public and governmental pressure is to the point where they are actually helping assist to step in and stop some of this, because it is rampant around the globe.
Well, the United States Secret Service is more widely known in popular culture for its protective services of government officials. The agency's founding mission was to stop counterfeit currency, and today it undertakes a wide variety of investigations, according to Newsweek, who wrote that article. Meanwhile, ransomware gang targeted 3 different U.S. water treatment plants this year in previously unreported attacks, according to federal agencies. Boy, that's something to think about the next time you take a glass of water or something warmed up with tea. Ransomware gangs attacked even more water treatment plants across the U.S. than previously known, according to a new report. Water plants in Nevada, Maine, and California were all hit with ransomware in 2021. And all 3 incidents went unreported until recently, when the attacks were disclosed in a joint advisory published by the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, the FBI, the NSA, and the Environmental Protection Agency. The cyber attacks on water treatment plants come amid a broader rise in ransomware, shaking public and private organizations across the U.S. Ransomware attacks in which criminals deploy, yes, we know what they do. In all 3 attacks, cyber criminals took over the water treatment plant supervisory control and data acquisition systems, also known as SCADA or SCADA, depending on how you say that, which lets administrators remotely monitor the facilities. This is scary stuff.
Yes, it is. I worked with a lady that used to oversee the department that went in and did audits on site on a lot of our infrastructure plants, power, water, nuclear. And they have an interesting set of problems where the OT technology is older. It doesn't move at the same pace as IT. And they've, in order to kickstart and add more functionality, especially to remote sites, they've integrated things like IoT or...
Now, what is OT, for those folks who know what IT means?
Operational technology? Yeah, that's
Ding,
like
ding, ding.
Operational technology.
reactors and robots and plants and those types of things.
Physical, hard stuff you touch and throw switches on.
Yeah, normally it's managed by firmware instead of software, which is
Firmware is software that never
software and
changes.
firmware. Yeah,
And we
it's
have
embedded on it.
similar things in our homes now, these little,
Some of us do,
thermostats.
Joe.
What's that?
Not me.
yeah,
I don't have any of that crap.
IoT type stuff. Yeah, and to your point, I mean, the problem with the industry like that, the energy utility industry is, and they know this, right? This is, you're not going to tell them. They know this is a crisis. This is a problem, right? And it's one that's been ignored, for whatever reason, but it is not being ignored now. And that's where the government has said, look, you got to do something. So there's a regulation that many are familiar with called NERC-CIP, right? That is telling these utility companies that they need to go out and, and upgrade their processes, their technology, all of it. It is not easy.
But at what point does the government stop saying you need to fix it and start addressing it as you've attacked my critical infrastructure, that's an act of war?
Oh, yeah.
That's the other piece that needs to be
that's a
taken.
sensitive topic.
The government needs to take a little bit of responsibility there
Well,
too, because that's an attack on our infrastructure, which if somebody blew up a water treatment plant, that would be terrorism, act of war, but cyber attack is not. Why not?
And all of these attacks used to be off the table in the global community. And it was a little thing called Stuxnets that unfortunately opened up the door that cued the global community that cyber physical actually was a potentially acceptable
And
vector.
it was bound to happen sooner or later.
Yes.
I mean, for all the pros and cons about the whole Stuxnet operation, it was bound to happen sooner or later. It was just a question of when. It really was.
There's an amazing book I would encourage everyone here to read. It's called This Is How They Tell Me the World Ends. And it was written by a journalist that went around and kind of embedded herself in the zero-day community, tried to get in with the NSA and other cyber spying type folks around the globe. And it's, you won't sleep a lot after that, after you read some of the behind the scenes things that have actually happened over the last 60
So much for
years.
the half glass full guy.
I know.
Half glass.
I knocked that shit on the ground.
Well, just to make it sound even more depressing, critical infrastructure security dubbed abysmal by researchers. This article from ZDNet, published on October 15th by Charlie Osborne. She often writes security articles. The abysmal state of security for industrial control systems, or ICSs, is putting critical services at serious risk, according to new research. You only need to look at the chaos caused by a ransomware attack launched against Colonial Pipeline this year to, illustrate this. And it goes on and cites other articles about an issue that occurred at the Port of Hudson, fending off a cyber attack. and others that are mentioned in this article. While nation-state actors have an abundance of tools, time, and resources, other threat actors primarily rely on the internet to select targets and identify their vulnerabilities, the team writes. While most ICSs have some level of cybersecurity measures in place, human error is one of the leading reasons due to which threat actors are still able to compromise them time and again.
Replace people with robots. Fixes it.
That's why if you talk to the FBI, the business email compromise dollars lost is higher than ransomware
Seriously.
because it's so much more frequent, but it's smaller amounts. Because why would you spend all the energy to try and break into a system, get in, ransom it, negotiate the ransom and all those things versus just say, hey, click this.
And send me the money to this bank account
Hey,
that I
click,
just
or
changed.
hey, I'm going to shut your electric off. Give me $1,000 in gift cards and trick some poor person to giving you money. If you look at the FBI numbers, the business email compromise numbers are much higher than the ransomware.
Well, I think, and then, the dark web, right, that we're going to talk about. To your point, that there's also this, part of where the bad guys are going in and doing things to be undetected, right? So they get credentials and stuff, and depending on the credential, they can sell it for $1,000 or $10,000, depending upon, okay, I have a credential for an industrial control system, right? This will get you admin access, and I sell it to, on the dark web, and it's not being investigated. So ransomware is so dramatic and bold, right? Someone has to pay. But a lot of the stuff that's happening under the covers, so to speak, is probably just as bad, like you said.
So the stuff that's getting all the attention is not necessarily the stuff where we need to focus our energy.
You need to focus on all of it. That's the painful part.
You mean the news is focused on flashy things, not real things?
Gee, who would have ever imagined that media wants to dramatize every sort of headline? And on that note, according to this article from Gizmodo, the U.S. wants to crack down on sales of commercial hacking tools for obvious reasons. The rule comes after a year of hacking scandals, some of which involved commercial spyware, and seems to target China and Russia. Gee, who would have guessed? After a slew of hacking scandals involving private surveillance companies, the U.S. is looking to impose new restrictions on the sale of commercial hacking tools in the hopes of clamping down on abuse perpetrated by the industry. The Commerce Department announced a rule change that will put new limitations on the resale or export of certain items that can be used for malicious cyber activities. This applies to tools used to infiltrate digital systems and conduct surveillance, such as the notorious commercial spyware Pegasus, as well as other hacking and other intrusion software. The Washington Post first reported. This rule, which has reportedly been in development for years, will be put into effect in 90 days from the time of this article, which was written.
Have you guys
Is this
heard
like
of
a Wassenaar type thing?
that? A what?
Is this like a dual use, like crypto? Are they trying to do something under that?
I don't know. Cracking down on commercial hacking tools. I know the headline just like, that's, why would you do that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, let's go after the people in China and Russia that we can't go after today.
Yeah, I mean,
pass another
it's
law
the
for
U.S.
that.
government, trying to help us.
But it's
you know,
against
for
the law,
sure.
Robert. It's against the law.
Meanwhile, security, remote work, top concerns amongst most firms. IT managers cite instructing employees on remote work and securing remote workers as top challenges amongst the increased adoption of hybrid work practices. Just like this conference is hybrid because half of you are out there in Zoom land. Yes, they're over there. I'm looking at them right now.
My top challenge was pants.
Yeah, but at an in-person conference, we actually have to wear pants.
That was I had a security event this morning. I have to go downstairs. I have to put on these damn pants.
Yeah, exactly.
You're welcome.
Increasing adoption of hybrid work practices has pushed the need to enable and secure remote workers as a top challenge for IT managers. Security threats have also evolved amidst this emerging workplace with supply chain attacks hogging recent headlines. But 53% of IT administrators believe their use of known trusted software will help keep their organization safe from such threats.
I mean, if you've had a mobile workforce, if you have a sales force, if you have people that work in remote locations and don't have an office, you've kind of been addressing these things over time, hopefully. And it was just a shift to now everybody's part of that model. So for us, we're a large organization, 160 countries. We don't have offices in all those countries. So some of those people work out of wherever they work. So you secure them to a certain level to make sure that works well. And you're just basically shifting your majority of your workforce into that model. So it's not too much of a shift, but it's a different mindset of thinking of a larger group rather than being the exceptions.
The boggle, though, Billy, I mentioned this yesterday with one of the stories we had, is large enterprises and at some point medium enterprises that dabble with, they might have a mixed workforce. Those people are generally better prepared. But when you think about the majority of business, at least in the States, you're looking at small business, a handful of people, maybe 100 people. They don't have these capabilities. They barely have computers and printers. When the pandemic first started, I have a couple friends that are city administrators in little cities around the country, and they called me like, well, how the hell can I get Mabel that does the checks for the city? How can I get her to do something when she's not allowed to come in? I got this really great PC, go to my PC thing. Could I use that? Like,
Yeah.
and it's these smaller organizations that don't have professional staff. They don't have these concepts are well out of their thinking and budgets.
Yeah, in a talk yesterday, someone said, the question, what's driving your digital transformation? And they said COVID, right? Which is true. And the funny thing about that is what we've seen too is, it's a workflow change, right? It isn't really a big deal, but it's a workflow change. So you've got a bunch of people now working from home, and they're trying to figure out how to get all their stuff, their digital data from where it used to be now onto their laptop or, God forbid, wherever. So you had to adjust that workflow, and that's where the IT people were completely overwhelmed, right? Rightfully so.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is things like monitoring. How do you monitor your environment? Because before you had all these people in the building accessing servers in such way from these IP addresses, right? So you had that baseline. Well, when COVID happened, the baseline just went, right? You had to change your baseline, right? So a lot of back office stuff people were realizing, was a big change.
It's a huge challenge.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, speaking of challenges, poor Argentina, because a hacker stole
Don't cry for me,
ID
Argentina.
I'm sorry?
Don't cry for me,
Said
Argentina.
the same thing. Jinx, roll me a code.
Jinx, buy me a Coke.
Hackers steal government ID database for Argentina's entire population. A hacker has breached the Argentinian government's IT network and stolen ID card details for the country's entire population, data that is now being sold in private circles. The hack, which took place last month, targeted RENAPPER, if I said that right, which stands for Registrario Nacional de las Personas, translated as National
Sí.
Registry of Persons. And I'm sure I butchered that Spanish, but what little I remember from high school, hopefully I said that right. The agency is a crucial cog inside the Argentinian Interior Ministry, where it is tasked with issuing national cards to all citizens. Data that also stores in digital format as a database accessible to other government agencies, acting as a backbone for most government queries for the citizens' personal information. So, yeah, it's not just here at home. It's
Everywhere. And think about how those people going to be able to verify identity for things like loans or employment. I know a couple people here in the audience have been victims of identity theft here, and it's a life-altering experience. So think about it again. You're in a less capable area of the world. That's going to be very challenging.
Yeah, so the entire
Country,
country of Argentina just had its ID stolen, right?
Yep.
So who do you call when that happens?
Yeah, really. Hello, we need some help in this.
We're going to reboot. We're going to start over.
Speaking of the world, CISA warns
I live there.
of GPS bug that may roll back dates by 1,024 weeks to March 2002.
24.
The U.S. government is warning companies about a bug in a software. This sort of sounds like Y2K plus 2 here. Warning about a bug in software library used to synchronize time via the GPS navigational system that will roll back time on unpatched devices by 1,024 weeks to a date of March 2002. The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure, I can say that again. The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, published a security advisory about this bug and its impending trigger date of October 24th. Well, wait a minute, that just happened 4 days ago. So is this a real disaster? Did it really happen?
I guess Dave can give up on building that DeLorean.
It worked.
You know, GPS, right?
Yeah, there you go.
So maybe this is a non-event.
So maybe we're not in the pandemic if it's 2012.
2002.
2002, that's even better.
2002, yeah.
Yes,
Oh, the
yes.
good old days.
Oh, we got
Well,
time
I
to
don't know,
prepare.
Time to
2002,
prepare.
2002 wasn't a good old day as some companies went bomb.
Oh my gosh, my iPhone just turned into a BlackBerry.
Hey, they're outside, they can help you. They're a sponsor.
We need a flux capacitor. I think Dave might have one.
He does. He's working on it.
Indeed, he's definitely working on it, and if anybody can get it, he'll have it. Maybe that's why he presented so well previously.
He gets to retake.
Because
He's doing retakes until he gets it right. Yeah.
He's got it perfect because every time we see him, it's perfect because he's
That
he's done it
explains a
5
lot.
times, you know.
That explains why he knows so much.
Did the article say where the error was? Was it in the software of like the satellites or the software we use in our phones to?
The bug resides in GPSD, a C library for adding GPS support to a device's firmware, and a daemon used on NTP servers. Besides providing connectivity to the GPS, the library can also be used to attain a coordinated universal time, UTC, from the GPS system in order to synchronize devices. And the bug was discovered in this time retrieval feature in July.
That's just all of our phones and cars and
So it's just software. though.
Roombas.
We'll just do a real quick update patch and we're all good, right?
A fix was released in August 2021 with GPSD 3.23.
There you go. Everybody go update your phone.
Speaking of bugs, a Cisco SD-WAN security bug allows root code execution. Yes, the high severity bug, and this article is current as of October 22, so this is not an old article, so we're not talking something of 2 months ago. The high severity bug is an OS command injection flaw, so if you have Cisco SD-WAN, check your updates. Cisco SD-WAN implementations are vulnerable to a high severity privilege escalation vulnerability in the iOS IE operating system that could lead to arbitrary code execution. Cisco's SD-WAN portfolio allows businesses of all sizes to connect to separate office locations via the cloud using various networking technologies, including standard internet connections, appliances, yada, yada, yada. Update, patch, patch, patch. I mean, that's all we really need to say is it's time to patch.
if you don't get that you need to be patching all the time, you may want to read articles like this to refresh that thinking.
I'm trying to remember, there was a vendor at one of the Gartner shows, and their logo on their shirt was patch your...
Stuff.
Finally, speaking of people who just don't get it, Missouri governor vows to prosecute the St. Louis Post-Dispatch for reporting a security vulnerability. This article on October 14th. The St. Louis Post-Dispatch ran a story about how its staff discovered and reported a security vulnerability, and I am dramatizing this for a very specific reason,
I'm sure
in a
they
Missouri
cracked the
state
case.
education website that exposed the social security numbers of 100,000 elementary and secondary teachers. How terrible that this person did this hacking, according to the governor. Just to cut to the chase, it was such a pathetic example that all you had to do in the web browser was click view source, and you saw the social numbers. And this was what was described as hacking.
And the governor is angry at the newspaper or the people that manage the website that's supposed to protect the data?
Well, the governor was
newspaper,
saying it
of
was the
course.
fault of this reporter who
disclosed the
used
people.
hacking tools to describe
Lead
this
hacker.
problem. Yes. A Missouri Governor Mike Parson, and an embarrassment to Republicans everywhere, and I'm saying that as a registered Republican, said fixing the flaw could cost the state $50 million and vowed his administration would seek to prosecute and investigate the hackers and anyone who aided the publication in its attempt to embarrass the state and sell headlines for the news outlet. Now, to be accurate and tell the whole story, the reporter who discovered this did not publish and disclose the vulnerability until the state was notified first to address the issue.
So this is an education.
disclosure.
Yeah, this is an education and awareness thing. That's simply what I don't know this governor. I'm not going to bash him, but it's just clearly, he probably doesn't understand the process or something like that, and he put his foot in his mouth. So what is he going to do to back away from it? I don't know, but it's just education and awareness that these things happen. Yes, they have to be disclosed. There's probably the right way to disclose them. There's probably the wrong way to disclose them.
Well, and coordinated disclosure of vulnerabilities is challenging. And up even today, when a valid researcher finds a bug with a product or service and reports it to a vendor, there are some organizations in the world that will attempt to litigate their way out of remediating the problem. So this is a big problem in the industry where some companies are more aggressive than others in how they react. Anytime a researcher, a finder, a hacker finds a bug with your product and reports it to you, they're doing you a favor. You should be thankful, unless they're complete asshats.
Indeed.
You should be thankful. But again, this reaction of the governor is very similar to how some corporations around the globe react when somebody's legitimately trying to get a problem fixed.
Indeed. And it's 8:30, so I'm going to have to wrap up our panel of security friends here. I want to thank our security friends, CRob, Billy, and Joe, everybody. Round of applause
Thank
for
you, Rob.
our professional security friends.